Hello and welcome back to another Minecraft Let's Play video by me, FoxyNoTail, here on the truly Bedrock survival server, and I'm currently on a mountain not far from my base, looking down over at what is going to be our vacation holiday beach resort type area. You might notice that there is some mud or dirt strings that I have placed down there. And I've also done a little bit of work in the nether tunnel over there on a live stream that took place yesterday as I'm recording this. So these dirt lines are basically where I would like to bring the sand out to from the beach and then start gradually taking it down into the water, because if this is going to be a summer holiday or a summer vacation area, we're going to need lots and lots of beach in order for us to sit on and enjoy the nice sunshine. So definitely we'll be extending the beaches that way. Heading over to the nether portal, I have also started decorating the nether portal on the inside to make it look nice for all of the other members to travel down. Coming out of this on the other side, what I've gone for is kind of a beachy theme. So we've got the sandy floor. Obviously this is half slabs to stop things like magma cubes spawning. And then we've got like waves coming up, and we've used the blue fire to kind of make it look animated, with the top of the wave coming over down the other side. Now on this side, what I'd really like is sort of more sand and sandstone with things like palm trees and stuff growing into it, so it looks like the waves are crashing onto the shore. But that is not a job for today. That's a job for another day. For what we're going to do today is something completely different. A couple of episodes ago, I mentioned farms and wanting to add to my list of already quite substantial number of farms. And as we come over to our industrial area, you can see we've got a lot of chunk spaces left to add in a lot more different types of farms. And I've got a list of many different types of farms that I would like to add into this area. And I think the first one that I really want to add is a dye farm. And in order to build a dye farm, we're going to need a flower forest, which I am in right now. And this just happens to be the exact location of my industrial area on Truly Bedrock. If we go over to a mapping program and check out the map of Truly Bedrock, this is my industrial area right here. And I am stood round about at this point here. Now, if I switch the view to biome view, you can see this little brown area here is the flower forest where we were standing in that blank version of the world. So all I need to do is work out which of the chunks within this flower forest match up with our industrial area chunks and then pick one and build the farm inside it. However, due to some incredibly terrible planning on my part, the chunks that we need are these three, which are already taken up. So it's these three, and then 2 rows of chunks outside of our industrial area, which are also part of the flower farm. So we could build the dye farm on the outside of this, but that kind of feels like it defeats the point of having the industrial area. So I'm kind of tempted to rip one of these out. Now, I know I wanted to redo the sugarcane farm anyway because I wasn't overly happy with its design. So I might just tear down that entire farm in order for us to put our flower farm in there. But then on the other hand, I don't really want to do that. Oh, jeez. However, fortunately, with this being the Bedrock edition of the game, we don't actually need to be in a flower farm because we can bone meal flowers and get those colours back, so we can make a flower farm anywhere we want. And as much as this is completely inefficient and crude and ridiculous design, something like this would give us an awful lot of dye very quickly. So I think what we need to do is put our thinking caps on and come up with a one chunk flower farm design that's going to give us as many different colours as possible. Okay, so I think the first thing to do is to figure out which flowers we can actually duplicate, and I think it's going to be pretty much all of them except for the wither rose. So let's just do a few tests. Okay, so from that we've discovered we can duplicate everything except from the wither rose, and the other things that throw up a little bit of a confusion is these yellow ones will often give us your red flower, and the red flowers, the poppies, will often give us a yellow flower. So we don't need those ones though, because we can actually use the rose bush and the sunflower to get more back for our return. Because the rose bush will give a whole rose bush back, and each one of those equals 2 dyes, we're actually getting 2 amounts of red dye for one bone meal with the sunflower and the rose bushes instead of using poppies and dandelions. So the next thing to do is to figure out exactly what dyes we get from each of these flowers, and I've gone through and put them all into the crafting table to see what dyes we get, and we can get this range of colours. Now obviously the wither rose is going to be absolutely no use for us because we can't duplicate it, and there's no point in having the dandelion or the poppy like we said, or the red tulip either. We also don't need 3 different variations of light grey dye, so we can get rid of the white tulip and the azure. And there's very little point in using the lily of the valley either, because we're actually pumping bone meal into the system to get these dyes, so having something that's going to give us white dye is a complete waste. And then we don't need the pink tulip or the allium either, because we can get double the amounts back from the lilacs and the peonies, which means we can get a total of 8 different colours of dye from this farm. The other thing we need to consider is how the 2 tall flowers and the single flowers behave differently. For instance, if we bone meal the single flower, we get more single flowers that grow on the grass, so then they need to be broken either by using pistons or by using water to flush them away. The difference with the 2 tall flowers is when you bone meal those, you just get the item straight away, which makes making a farm for those a lot easier than making one for these. So behind me I've got something, ignore this half of it, but looking at this half, we've got a relatively simple flower farm that's not particularly efficient, it's not particularly quick, but it does work. So when I turn it on, you can see that there is a clock that occasionally will fire, flush the area with water, and it will grow the flowers between those points where the water's flushing. So we're getting growth, and then the items are getting flushed away. The problem is, however, some of the flowers end up on these blocks here, which isn't ideal. Some of them get trapped behind those blocks, which isn't ideal. And also, the grass is turning to dirt, which again, isn't ideal. So, as much as this design is nice and clean and very easy to build, it's not going to be particularly useful for us in the long run, as we're going to lose a lot of flowers and a lot of places where the flowers can actually grow on the grass. Ideally, when we grow our flower, we'd like it to be in the middle of the grass so that when we bone meal it, it's got a full area around it to spread. That means we're going to get the maximum number of flowers back per piece of bone meal. The problem is, if we're using a shifting floor method, which I think we're going to have to use like this one, the flowers themselves need to be at the edge in order to not get broken when the floor shifts. Now, what I would really like to do is have the flower on a raised platform like that, and then have the dispenser up next to it, and that way we can shift the floor underneath without affecting this one here. And I don't see why that would work, but there's a bit of a weird glitch going on with this. If I show you, if we get that dispenser activating, you can see it's not actually spreading that flower, but sometimes, occasionally, it will. It's just incredibly random how often it actually works. If we sit and watch it for a little while, occasionally it will spread one flower down. There you go. You saw it then. But then it will go back to not doing it, and you can see it's not using the bone meal. So this is not a reliable method for us to be able to use. There we go. It did it again. Why? Why? It's so weird and random. So yeah, we can't use that method. The other thing we could do is do this in strips so that we can put the flowers in the middle and then just have strips that don't move while the pistons move each side of things. That's probably going to be one of the most efficient ways we could do this, I think. So I've come up with this, which is very much needing a lot more work to do with it, but the idea itself is absolutely great. What we've got is 3 strips of 12 blocks worth of grass, which are being pushed by the pistons. We've got 4 dispensers in the middle, which are being fed by chests with bone meal in. And then we've got the 4 different flowers that we want to get different dyes from. Underneath, we've got a hopper minecart going around on the track, collecting all of the dyes from the grass as it's broken. And then we've got a clock system, which is going to fire the pistons at an alternate time to the dispensers so that everything fires nicely. So if I flick this, you will see we get the growth of the flowers, and then they immediately get broken as the thing shuffles about. It's a little bit herky-jerky, and it doesn't look entirely, well, it doesn't look quite right, does it? But it's working at the end of the day. That's the main thing, and we're getting plenty of flowers from it. If we check out the chest below, you'll see that we're getting lots and lots of flowers coming through into our chests. So back on Truly Bedrock, I need to pick a chunk to put this farm in, and I think I'm going to go for the one next to the sheep farm over here. That's absolutely great. This will do nicely. So I guess it's time to start building. So first thing to do, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up, and this is the dispenser system, which is actually going to spit out all of the flowers into our big storage system over there. This water stream goes down into the middle and will eject things into the storage system. And what it is basically a little funky design I've just come up with, actually. So the normal way I would do this, I would have my dropper there, I would put my items in it, and I would have some sort of clock similar to this that would then spit the items out. You could speed that up by basically changing the redstone a bit, but it's, I don't know, I fancy doing something a little bit different. So what I've got now is pretty much the same footprint, so it's a 3x3 area, same as required for that. But this time we've got some observers. So if I put my redstone dust in there, this piston extends, which pushes an observer, creates an observer clock, which then uses a tiny little bit of redstone to spit all of the items out nice and quickly. And as soon as that's all run out, let's give it a helping hand, the piston will retract and it will stop the clock. And there we go, everything's nice and simple. So yeah, we've just got two of those side by side. So it doesn't matter which one the items go in. If we chuck a bit of scaffolding in there, it's going to spit it out of that one. And if we chuck a little bit of scaffolding in there, it's going to do the same the other way. And you can see that will be making its way through into our storage system. And the next thing to do is the Minecart Track. And we want to make sure it's got full coverage of the entire area that's going to be under the grass, which does mean we're going to have to redesign the way the grass gets pushed by the pistons as from what we had in the creative world. And also how we're going to activate these dispensers, but that's absolutely fine. And what I've made sure I've done is got lots and lots of hoppers here for the hopper minecart to empty out the flowers into there, because it's going to generate flowers quickly, this thing, and we want to make sure that we are depositing them as quickly as we're picking them up. So this still might not be enough hoppers, but hopefully it will be for now. That's all the grass filled in. Now I'm just adding in a few sea lanterns because quite clearly we have mob spawning issues in this area. There we go, that's everything nice and light. The redstone to the pistons is now all in place. There is no clock or anything yet, it is just sort of there. We've got the, this side's got two lots of redstone torches and that side's only got one, which means these sides are extended while those ones are retracted, and that makes it really, really easy to switch between both states. All we need to do is run a redstone line in between both of these like this, and if I activate that line, they'll shift. So these ones are currently extended and these ones are currently retracted. If I pop a redstone torch down there, this side will retract and that side will extend. So that's nice and easy. I now have the redstone system in place, which is going to activate our dispensers, and a couple of hefty hopper lines, which is going to bring in the bone meal from below. And now I have a ridiculous dropper elevator that is going to take the bone meal up into that chest. I've taken away the hoppers underneath it first because we need to test it. So ideally when I put bone meal in this chest, it should start whizzing its way up to the top of this system, and we should find it's all gathering nicely inside this chest up here, which it is, and some grass as well. So then all we need to do is link up those hoppers into those ones there. That's going to start taking the bone meal through the system and into our droppers here. We can see they are all going in. Not at the back though. I guess it's going to fill up the front first. Maybe we should do something about that to make sure that's evenly distributing. And the way I've done that is to get rid of the chest that was in front of those two droppers. So those droppers are now spitting straight into these hoppers. The bone meal will come along there. It will split into each of these double chests here, and those double chests will then get taken out of, and they will then fill into these droppers here. However, this side for some reason is not filling up at all, whereas the other side is working nicely. So why are we not getting anything filling up on this side? I've probably broken the redstone somewhere. Let's check this out. It's traveling up there, and for some reason it's all getting stuck inside that dropper. Why? That shouldn't be possible. Has one of the observers broken? No, it just didn't like having that observer there as well. So I guess what we probably should do then, if we're getting overlapping redstone signals, is take out a few of these observers and just reorganize our redstone a little bit better. Technically, we don't need them on every single one. So if we do that like that, we should get a more consistent flow. Well, it's certainly clicking a lot more than it was, so I'm taking that as a good sign. Let's just check that we are getting bone meal through on each side. We are. We're filling up in that dispenser, and we are filling up in that dispenser. We're filling up in that dispenser, and we're filling up in that one as well. This is good news. So the system is working. So literally all there is to do now is to wire up the redstone and actually make this thing work. We've got everything in place. We just need a clock that's going to make sure that the pistons fire at the alternate time to the dispenser's dispensing. Oh, and we need our flowers in. Let's grab our flowers. So this one chunk farm is just for our single flowers, not our double tall flowers. We'll deal with those later. And I am missing one. I need the light blue orchid, which you get from a swamp. So I guess I'm going to need to go and find a swamp. And just a stone's throw away from Mr. Beardstone's base, we have a swamp just down here that isn't a million miles away from my base, to be honest with you. So all we need is just one, there we go, one little blue orchid. There we go. Let's grab a couple of them just to be on the safe side. Nice. Let's go home. And here we are. That is our flower farm almost complete. Just the little clock to do now and we are there. Now this could technically work. However, there's a lot of repeaters and comparators going on with all this and I'm not 100% convinced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw an item in there and that should start switching between those two hoppers, which is going to sort out our pistons, we should see the grass is now, I can't get out of here, shifting from one side to the other with a bit of luck. It is. That's good news. But are our dispensers firing at the right time? That's the thing we've got to be careful of, and it looks like they are. There's a lot of lag. There's an awful lot of lag. That's probably to do with these dropper elevators, to be honest with you. But it is working. We are getting flowers. They don't appear to be being picked up there. Where's our hopper minecart? It is doing things. It's very, very laggy. Let's hop up here and watch this thing. Kind of making it across. Wow, this thing's laggy. Fortunately, there is no one else online right now. It's only me that's going to be affected by this. But yeah, this is probably not something we're going to run particularly regularly. Because, geez, man, this is not good. Now, I've got a feeling if I was to disable these droppervators, this would probably not be laggy anymore. However, my feeling was very wrong. It is still incredibly laggy. It's probably then got something to do with the ridiculous amount of grass that's being pushed backwards and forwards on all of the plants that are being created. Oh, geez. Well, lag aside, you know, success so far. It does look like, though, we are getting those flowers being grown at the same time as the pistons are moving. So we could probably add a little bit of delay just on those dispensers dispensing so that they're not dispensing at the same time as the grass moving. And that's better. We're now getting a much better spread of flowers. Right, now what we need to do is check the hopper minecart is actually able to dispense it all. So we should be seeing down here that we're getting items inside this thing. We're getting all sorts of stuff we don't want. I've still got these hoppers locked, so nothing can go in them. But are we actually getting anything in the hopper minecart, or is the hopper minecart able to actually get rid of its items? Okay, bad news. The hopper minecart is very, very full, and the items don't seem to be getting into these hoppers particularly well. So we need a better collection system, because this is just, it's not going to work for us. The creeper may have slightly gone off. I don't think it's damaged anything on the farm, but it certainly has blown a little bit of a hole in the ground here. And these guys are really starting to get on my nerves now. We need a better security system. This is not good. Realistically, the way we should have fixed this would have been to include a hopper minecart unloader or a fast unloader. That's not going to fit into our one chunk build, so I've just gone crazy and added in loads and loads of hoppers that will suck the items out of the hopper minecarts. It's still probably not going to be enough, but it'll be plenty for now. So let's get the hopper... Oh, jeez. Come on. Stop. As I was saying, let's get the hopper minecart back on. I'm also going to put a second one on as well, so we can pick up twice as many flowers. Now, they shouldn't bang into each other, all being well, and they should be able to dispense their items properly into the system below, which will then end up in our system over there. Because this system needs to dump out all of the stuff that it picked up in there while it was going the first time round, which is all going nicely inside of our storage system. So we've now got these 4 flowers coming into here, 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 and here. And some buttons as well, apparently. So that's all good. That's all connected. That's working. Our bone meal's all working. That's all in place. The only problem we've got now then is the horrendous lag. And that's it. Other than the horrendous lag, it's fine. And what's a bit of horrendous lag between friends? You know, it's fine. I think the issue here with the lag is that these things are fighting against each other. Let's disable part of the farm and see if we can figure this out. Okay, I've turned off those 2 rows of the flower farm. We've only got these 4 rows here, so now there really shouldn't be any lag with that running. Let's see if that happens or not. It doesn't look particularly laggy, but it does look like those pistons are fighting against themselves quite a bit, and it is still a little bit laggy. Yeah, I'm going to put that down to the pistons fighting against each other, which means my timings are probably not quite right. And there we go, with a little bit of jiggery-pokery on the redstone, I've now managed to get rid of quite a lot of the lag that was caused by the pistons fighting against each other. So, using our good old friendly observers, if we replace the repeaters with observers watching this redstone dust here, put a row of torches there instead, and then we replace these blocks here with a row of torches as well, like so, we now have an inverted signal, so those pistons are always off, and they're only going to get a brief signal when that redstone line changes, and they're going to fire quickly, which means they shouldn't have time to overlap with these ones. If we do exactly the same thing over here, so the redstone torches coming out the back of those observers, blocks on top, and then the redstone torches on top of those, we should find that that system is a lot less laggy. Fingers crossed. So let's flick the lever. And let's watch this in action. The grass still changes and you can see the piston retracts before that one has chance to push, which means they're no longer fighting against each other, which means if we hop up so we can check on our hopper minecarts, we shouldn't see any... Yeah, it's laggy still. But it's not as laggy. Is it? I don't know. Oh, jeez. I don't know. It's better than it was anyway. So I'm going to do that on the rest of them and hope that that will solve our little lag problem. With even more jiggery-pokery later on the redstone, we are back to Lag City. We've got all sides working at the same time again. And this time what I've done is just run everything off just one observer on each side. So, well, not even an observer. It's coming directly off the hopper clock in the middle. So we've just got a redstone line going up and across all of the pistons like that. And we've got exactly the same thing going on the other side. But now we do have some weird stuff going on, and I'm going to have to be careful now because Liara's online and I don't want her to be suffering from the lag. So, yeah, I still think we probably should add an observer in here so we're not having, like, this kind of weird stuff going on. And probably maybe extend this redstone line down so it actually reaches to the other end. But, yeah, I think we're on to almost a winner here. I think it's time I started being a little bit realistic here. This farm is clearly very laggy. The pistons, I don't know why, are just ridiculously laggy when they're moving that amount of stuff at once, which is not ideal, which means that we're not going to be able to run this farm for an overnight AFK session or anything like that, which is fine. That's absolutely fine because we're never going to need an extraordinary amount of dyes, but what that does mean is that this system to feed it is completely pointless and over the top. So we tried and failed with something big, but how about something small? Now this little design here is relatively fast, it's easy to build, it's probably relatively lag free because there's not a great deal of redstone going on with it and not many moving parts. We've got one piston, a couple of hopper minecarts hidden behind these blocks here, a couple of hoppers, a dispenser and 2 observers. And what happens here is that we get this firing and it will attempt to grow the flower, and it will grow occasionally when it can, when the piston's not in the way, and we will get the flowers down in here. Now the downside to this is it's not going to be particularly efficient because we're only going to grow 1 flower per piece of bone meal, which is not ideal compared to these where you can get multiple flowers per piece of bone meal, but it's not far off one of these where you would get 2 back per piece of bone meal. Playing with this a little bit more, it is possible to scale it up slightly by adding in another couple of pistons at either side, but that does mean another couple of hopper minecarts and hoppers, which means this is becoming a little bit more expensive. But you can see the speed of the flowers coming through here are a lot better, and we're now potentially getting up to 3 flowers growing per bone meal. We won't always, sometimes we'll only get 1, sometimes we'll get 2, but it's still not going to waste any bone meal, and it is still relatively rapid. So, trying hard to consider efficiency, that brings me to floor pushing designs again, and we're getting a little bit messy and a little bit laggy again. We're getting pistons fighting against each other, we're getting blocks moving around, all sorts of crazy, and yeah, I think we're just going to end up lagging the world out if we try and do something like this, which is a real shame. Well, I was hoping I would be coming back to Truly Bedrock with a whole new design and a whole new plan to make lots of mini flower farms, but unfortunately we're going to just stick with this one for the time being. It's going to give us plenty of flowers in a short space of time, providing we don't all get blown up by all of the mobs. And yeah, considering it's Groover Guy's online and Liara now, so as long as we run it when there's not many people online, it'll be absolutely fine. Well, this is interesting. The server has literally just restarted and now running this, everything's nice and smooth. No lag at all. It's working perfectly. So, I guess the server just was feeling a little bit unwell and it's happier again now. This is good news. So we can leave that running for a bit while we start working on the 2 tall flower ones. And after just a few minutes, our 2 tall flower farms are now in place. And these are really nice, easy, simple little designs that I just came up with, which I'll talk through you in a minute. But all we do, flick that lever on there, and we start getting sunflowers popping out at the bottom of this thing. It's absolutely ridiculously quick. And we can turn all 4 of these on and get all of the different flowers coming through into our storage system. But we kind of need to actually make a space for them in the storage system, because at the moment they'll just be floating round and around and around. And if you're wondering what this is, that is an entire inventory full of white dye that I crafted instead of bone meal. Because why not? Because white dye exists for no reason at all other than to upset me. And here we go, look, we got many of these things coming through already. And all we need to do is just change out a couple of our item filters so that they can go in. So that's our orchids. So we'll put the lilacs in there. We'll put the sunflowers in there. We'll put the peonies in there. And then we just need to get rid of all of that so we can pick up some of the rose bushes. There we go. We've got some rose bushes. Let's pop those into there. Very nice. And there we go. You can see we're already getting absolutely tons of these things coming through into our system. And you can see we've already got loads of the other ones that are in our system as well. So let's try and avoid picking that rubbish up that's on the floor. Let that despawn. And let's see how these things are made, because they're really good. Has that one run out of bone meal already? So here we are back in my creative test world to look at how this thing is made, and it's really simple. We've got a dispenser at the back, which has our bone meal. We've got an observer clock, which is activated by a sticky piston. We've got a hopper minecart inside of a grass block with a hopper underneath it and another dispenser there, and a tiny weeny bit of redstone under there. And what happens is when you flick the lever, this creates a clock, which activates that redstone, which activates that dispenser, and it also activates this dispenser up here. So these get bone meal. The item has nowhere to go other than into that minecart hopper, which then comes through into this hopper, which then comes through into dispenser, and it gets spat out. It's a really nice, simple system. So in terms of dye farm then, I think we've pretty much nailed it apart from cocoa beans. We've got obviously our black dye, which already comes in from our squid farm, which is over by our iron farm, which also produces poppies. So technically we've got red dye coming in twice. We've got another wandering trader. We've also got our orange, blue, light blue and light grey dye. We've got our white dye, which we get in the form of bone meal from many of our farms, particularly, again, the squid farm, because that comes in from the fish. And it also comes in from our iron farm, because our iron farm also produces fish, because it's built over an ocean. And then we've got our red, our yellow, our pink, and our magenta dyes. There really isn't all that much left to farm, except for like I said, cocoa beans, and then lime from sea pickles. We've got green, which comes in from our cactus farm over here. We've got loads and loads of cactus, so we can smelt that as quick as we want, and we can get as much of that as possible. And yeah, we could then mix that with bone meal in order to get the lime dye. But I think a sea pickle farm and a cocoa bean farm are probably going to be coming up relatively soon in order to finish off our dyes. Now, what does this chap want? Well, I managed to get his smooth stone, purpur, and cobblestone, but unfortunately I don't have any jungle wood, and I don't have any of the sponge either. So you, I'm afraid, sir, are going to get it, and your llamas need to get rid of themselves because they are currently on my my flower farm. Get off! Get off me flower farm, mate. So out of the 2 wandering traders that have wandered by today, I've managed to get myself quite a nice little arrangement of blocks there, which is ideal. Anyway, that's all we got time for today. I'm sorry to cut this ending short, but goodbye.